Hey guys, I just want to do a review real quick of the muscle structure, and then we'll get into the sarcomere structure and how a muscle contracts. So first I'm going to just take a plain piece of paper. This is not in the packet of papers that you got for notes. And I want to go over the structure of a muscle and the wrappings just in case you need some help. So I'm going to draw a muscle. I can't laugh at my drawing, but I'm just going to draw a plain muscle that's been chopped in half. And we're going to just do a cross section of that muscle. So let me draw like we have cut the muscle in half. Like so. So if I take my bicep and I cut a cross section out of that, this whole entire muscle is going to be wrapped in epimysium. Epi means around, or upon. So upon the muscle, around the muscle, you will get epimysium. Inside of that muscle, there is going to be fascicles. So a whole bunch of fascicles. I'm going to draw that inside the muscle, like so. No rhyme or reason about how they're organized. Like that. Each one of those is a fascicle. Each fascicle is going to be wrapped in perimysium. So in between all of these circles here is going to be perimysium. And if I were to pull one of those circles out, I'll pull this one here. That is one fascicle. So this is a fascicle wrapped in perimysium. The actual bundle is the fascicle. The wrapping around it is perimysium. Sorry if y'all hear Adeline squirming in the back. Okay, each fascicle is going to contain bundles, like so. And each bundle is going to be called a myofibril, or a myofiber, which is the same thing as a muscle fiber, same thing as a muscle cell. This is a myofiber. So I'm going to pull one of these out. Again, each one of those myofibers is going to be wrapped in endomysium. So this is a myofiber. Remember, myo means muscle. And it's going to be wrapped in endomysium. Inside of that myofiber, we're going to have more little bitty bundles. I'll pull one of those out. Those are going to be called myofibrils. No wrappings on those. And inside of the myofibrils are two tiny fibers called myofilaments. Okay, now why are there not wrappings around the myofibrils and the myofilaments? That's because the myofiber is the same thing as a muscle fiber, which is the same thing as a muscle cell. Once we get inside the cell, this is going to be like an organelle level or protein level. So there's no wrappings around these. This has to be the cellular level. So on the inside of that endomysium, you will have the sarcolemma. which is the cell membrane of the muscle cell. Okay, so let's keep going. We're going to start talking about, I'm going to review just a little bit more, but what we're going to get to today is what happens with these myofilaments. What happens with the actin and the myosin whenever the muscle has to contract. So let me give you a little bit of a cheat sheet down here at the bottom. Let me think here. The muscle cell, this is just some bullet points to remind you of what I just said. The muscle fiber is the same thing as a muscle cell. The muscle cell has to be wrapped in endomysium, which is a connective tissue. Misspelled mysium. M-Y-S-I-U-M. Muscle cell has to be wrapped in endomysium as well as have a cell membrane called the sarcolemma. Okay, now from yesterday's lecture you can remember that specialized region of that sarcolemma that comes in contact with the nerve is called the motor end plate. So try to start putting the pieces of the puzzle together. Then the neuromuscular junction, we're talking about how a neuron makes contact right up here with the muscle cell. Muscle cell has to be wrapped in the endomysium and then the sarcolemma. Where does the nerve and the sarcolemma come together is called the motor end plate. Okay, so sarcolemma, you're going to hear me talk about that in a little bit. You're also going to hear me talk about a little bit more of what's inside of a muscle cell. Okay, the cytoskeleton, if you remember back from your biology days, cytoskeleton is what kind of helps the cell maintain its shape and gives the cell its structure. And so the cytoskeleton of a muscle cell is made up of actin and myosin. So what helps this muscle cell maintain its shape, have its structure about it, think about just like our skeleton, that gives us our shape and our structure inside of a muscle cell. It's got to have the same deal, and that cytoskeleton is going to be made up of the myofilaments called actin and myosin. Now let me write what I just said. Cytoskeleton of a muscle cell is made up of two myofilaments called actin and myosin. One is thick and one is thin. Actin is very thin, myosin is thick. It's the combination of those two that will give you the structure of the cytoskeleton, and it will also give you the structure of the contractile unit of the muscle cell, and that's going to be called a sarcomere. And I'm going to go through that in just a little bit. Okay. All right. Let's see. Actin and myosin make up the contractile units of the cell, of the muscle cell, called sarcomeres. Can't spell today. S-A-R-C-O-M-E-R-E. So the contractile unit of a muscle cell is called a sarcomere. You'll see that question again. What is the contractile unit of a muscle cell? A sarcomere. Okay. Now, one more thing to add about the actual muscle cell structure, and then I'll get into the actual sarcomere structure itself, because there's of course a lot more detail to it. Okay, now inside of the muscle cell, just like any other animal cell, there's going to be organelles. If you remember back from biology, you had a rough ER and a smooth ER. Well, the rough ER had ribosomes attached, the smooth ER did not. Inside of a muscle cell, since it's specifically a muscle cell, the ER is going to be called the sarcoplasmic reticulum instead of just the endoplasmic reticulum. Sarco means flesh for muscle. So inside of that muscle cell, you're going to have something called the sarcoplasmic reticulum. And that sarcoplasmic reticulum is going to contain calcium. And calcium is your big player here for muscle contraction. For my third block class, if you remember, when we watched the NY Med a long time ago, at the beginning of the year, I told you that cute little doctor on there, remember what she was talking about, remember what ions she was talking about, so that when I taught muscles, it would all start to make sense and you would think there's really a reason why we're learning all of this. Calcium, she talked about calcium in a heart attack case, and calcium is going to be our main player here for why our muscles contracting and causing the actual muscle contraction to start. So where is that calcium found? It's found in the sarcoplasmic reticulum of the muscle cell. So let's write that down. Just like the smooth and rough ER, it just gets a different name. The sarcoplasmic reticulum within the muscle cell you'll see. Okay. Muscle cell will store calcium. Specifically calcium ions, which is Ca2+. This calcium will flow in and out of the sarcoplasmic reticulum. I'm just going to write SR for short. And cause the muscle cell to contract. Okay, so that's your review / beginning of information on the structure of actin and myosin, or the structure of the muscle, and then in the next video we'll go into the actual structure of the sarcomere, and then into the structure of actin, and then into the structure of myosin, and then talk about how we put all that together to make a muscle contract. Okay, so if I were you, I would feel very comfortable with this information before I took my quiz. You need to be able to split the muscle up into big to little, or if you want to go the other way, little to big, to where you can remember what is each muscle wrapping. Is it wrapping the whole muscle? Is it wrapping the fascicle? Is it wrapping the muscle fiber? Inside that muscle fiber, we have myofibrils. Inside the myofibrils, we have myofilaments, which are actin and myosin. Know which ones they're wrapped in. So please, please, please look at that, or you're going to not be very happy with your quiz. Okay, so I'm going to you need to get your papers out to review. To take notes. It should be a packet of information to where we're going to fill in notes instead of you writing it on a piece of paper. You should not need any colors. Okay.